Ever wonder what financial advisors have to say about money goals, the market, or economic issues? If you have, then this podcast is for you. Behind the Designs gives you a sneak peek into the internal conversations at Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, a certified financial planner and the CEO here at FDS, will be your host and guide. Welcome to Behind the Designs.
All right, welcome back. Today I have Jake here with us. So Jake on our team, he's been here for 60 days now, I think, a few months, 2 to 3 months. So this is his chance to be interviewed. So we're going to be talking about high income earners. If you make high income, what do you do with it? So we're going to go into a lot of specifics. But first, Christmas, New Year's is coming up. Are you excited about that, Jake?
Hey, Michelle, thanks. And thanks for the opportunity today. Yes, I am very excited. Looking forward to taking a little time away. I'm going to go see my family on the West Coast. And so planes, trains, and automobiles, hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah.
You never know, flying out of Chicago in December. But yeah, really looking forward to it. And the other thing I really love about turning the calendar to a new year, New Year's Day. You think I'm going to say college football bowl games.
Yeah, or
those are good.
New Year's resolution.
But you get to update your net worth statement.
Okay,
Sit around, have some coffee, and update that net worth statement. It's a glorious time of the year.
That sounds so exciting, Jake. So, I mean, that's the thing. You have to know that Jake is so serious. He's excited about this. I think that's what I love is that I can tell, Jake, that you love financial planning. You're so interested in it. And while we say you've been here with us a few months now, but it's fun because you've been learning the last few years about financial planning. You've switched careers. And so you genuinely are interested and excited and you want to share this with people. So I think it's great. And so I know that you are being so serious when you say that January 1st, it's the update to the net worth statement, which we're going to talk about today. So I think it's great. So I know that you're really excited to talk about this because it's close to your heart. So that's really good. But yeah, it is fun to look forward to a new year. So I think sometimes it's even, people will say, oh, I haven't done this yet. And so it's actually a great chance to just say, it's okay. We're just starting from today, moving forward. So now's your chance to start. So we don't have to worry about mistakes we made. Let's move forward. So
clean slate, turning the page.
Exactly.
But most importantly, being intentional with what you're going to do in the coming year. And that's a great way to start the conversation today.
Exactly. So we're kind of getting ahead of this because New Year's Day, like January, that's when everybody else will be saying New Year, New You. So we're kind of saying it in December.
That's
We're giving this heads up, prepare. So I think it's great. All right. So when we talk about high income earners, these are clients that we work with where they have high income. A lot of times that comes with types of employee benefits where there may be complexity, but even just opportunity. So you have things you can plan with that some other people might not have, and that gives you opportunities to be more efficient with your money. When we step back and we say, great, what does high income even mean? I know that I've heard from existing clients who say, as we've defined over the years who it is that we work with, some people will even say, I don't think that I fit any of these. And, I just kind of laugh a little bit and I say, well, your income, you can't do this. You can't make an IRA contribution directly. You can't do these things. And, right on our webpage, we actually say, what does make a high income earner? Those are the things where it's more people qualify or would be surprised who falls into this. But as we step back, we want to kind of quantify what high income means. In last year, so 2021, 22, you've got statistics of what high income, average income even looks like. Walk us through kind of, what that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, so all right, so when we're talking about this, quote unquote, high income professional, high income earner, let's put some numbers to that. What does that actually mean? Well, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, most recent cut that I saw was in August 2022. The average median household income in the U.S. is about $77,000 a year. So that could be one or two workers. It doesn't specify, but about $77,000 per year. When we talk about, so you take that number, half of the people are below it, half are above. Some other data that we saw was there's about 36% of workers making over $100,000 a year and you think, six figures, I made it. I got it made in the shade. 36% of those people are still living paycheck to paycheck, which is, some choices, some just unawareness, but it's very, very common in our country. So that's what we're looking at. If you're fortunate enough to be in that position, where you're making, let's say, double the median, so right around $150,000 per year as a household, we'd say that's probably, tickling that high income area. And with that, we'll dive into some of those complexities that come up when you do have that income, because that's typically you're in a position, you might have some equity compensation in the company stock or restricted stock, incentive stock options. There's just a lot more complexity that can arise when you get to that point. So I hope I answered your question, Michelle.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. It really just helps us kind of paint a picture of even people making $100,000 can still be living paycheck to paycheck. And I think especially here in 2022 that people have seen and can witness that even making a lot of money with inflation, it eats into more of your expenses. So I think it's been trickier for people to have any extra left.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's where I know I don't want to jump ahead here, but there's so many great ways to plan around that because, as you make more money, your tax brackets go up, so that marginal tax rate is going to take a few more of your dollars each time. But there's lots of things that you can do there to, be aware of it. It's a great, I think I tell people it's a great problem to have. When people say, I pay so much in taxes, it's like, congratulations. That means you're making a lot of money.
Yeah. But they don't see it that way. People don't see it that way. Nobody wants to pay taxes. So
no,
exactly.
We don't,
but it is really important. I think sometimes as advisors, that's like something that we try to remind people of is kind of to be that encouraging voice that means that you're making a good income.
Yes.
So there's opportunities. And so that's really what we're looking for. Kind of staying here a little bit just on, yes, we're going to talk about people, making kind of that 150,000 and over because there's opportunities. What should you be doing? But we're not saying that people who make less than that, so people in this median area, 71 to 100, even in that range and under 150, there are still things that you need to and want to be doing to protect your finances and to make sure that you aren't falling into that statistic of someone who's making 100 living paycheck to paycheck. Some of these basic things that we're going to touch on you can be doing as well. It just might not be that you might not have like employee benefits where, they're available to you to where you could be doing more of the planning. But some of these things we're going to touch on today are really basic that apply to you too. So hopefully this is helpful for kind of a large audience of people, but we will kind of take it, for those people making more, like what are you doing with that? And just really being sure, as you've said, that you're being intentional. So I guess as we jump into this, so if we were to describe, okay, I'm making $150,000 or more, I'm a high income earner, I know that that's me, just kind of very basics. If you were to say, what is it that you should be concerned about first with your finances?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is, are you protected? And that's where we talk about having all the proper insurance in place, and we'll dive deeper into insurance, in other podcasts if you want to listen to those. But the main thing is just, if something were to happen, you don't want all of what you've been working towards, the wealth that you've been building or even just starting to build, wiped out because, I didn't have the proper homeowner's policy in place. Or I was, in my, 20s, I just had collision, I just had liability only on my car insurance. Maybe I was told about that umbrella policy, but it just, I didn't pull the trigger. And now the FedEx man slips and falls and sues me. Yeah. I don't know if FedEx would do that. I probably, probably not. FedEx is a great company, but anyways, so just make sure your assets, your livelihood is protected. Then I would say, we'll kind of shelve that aside. I would say, timeline your goals. What are you looking to accomplish? Right? You've got this shovel, this big shovel, meaning your salary. How many more years of this salary are you going to have? What are, when would you ideally like to retire? And are you taking the proper steps in order to set your future self up for success? I would start with those things. It's really taking that snapshot in time of where am I today? And if I haven't saved a nickel and I've been making all this money, that's just a great time to reflect on, where's my money going? So whether you're doing like a formal budget, I'm not a huge fan of those, but say at the very minimum, look at everything you're spending in 3 months, bucket it. There's plenty of apps out there that can help you with that if you want. But just where am I spending my money? Where are all these dollars going? You know, is it my mortgage? Is it my kids' stuff? Is it Amazon? Is it, you know, eating out? Is it vacations? You know, and then obviously you're going to have to prioritize what are those most important things for you. Spend money on those. But then if you want to get yourself set up for success in the future, start to have a plan for where those dollars are going to go.
You know what's interesting? I think just as interesting, and I guess sometimes surprising to me, that statistic of the 36% of workers who are making at least $100,000 are living paycheck to paycheck still. Surprisingly enough, people that are in this category of high income earners, so making $150,000 or more, they still at the end of the day feel like they don't know where their money is going. Like one of the things when we're creating plans for people, you know, how we will say, well, you know, what are your monthly expenses? And we're even just looking for like a ballpark of $8,000 a month, $5,000 a month. But most people will say, I don't have an idea. And there's ways where we back into that. I know we've got videos on our website where you can look at those. And so we're going to highlight some of those in the show notes because you can find out these numbers. And it is really important because a lot of times, if at the end of the day, what comes home, there's nothing left, and you say, I don't know where it all goes, well, then all of that net income is being spent. And so like that is your expense number, right? And so sometimes like that is what we assume because people are usually pretty quick to tell you when they do a good thing. Exactly. I saved, I invested in the right thing, I sold at the right time, I made money. But they're hesitant, right, to tell you when they spent too much or lost money. And so that's just natural human instinct. So as advisors, that's kind of like something in the back of our mind where we say, well, if they haven't said it's being spent or if it's not being saved, we assume it's being spent. So because at the end of the day, they would tell us exactly because that is what's happening because they would tell us and we would see it coming into an account on the, you know, investing or just even into a bank account. We would see it coming in and staying there. I think that's what's just as surprising to me that even people who make a high amount of income, they don't know where their money's going. So these basic pieces that you've described, so covering yourself risk, because, you know, one of the things is you're making this great income, but the risk is that we don't know how long you're going to make it. So maybe you have a really good job for now, and you might have that same job continuing to get a higher income for the rest of your career. That could very well be. But there's also risk that you don't keep that job and you don't make that much money. So it's like you do want to start today doing something. And so really what we're describing, what you've just started describing is kind of this foundation of I want to have the structure of my finances in place so that now as I progress over time and I earn more or I continue to earn the same, I'm just adding to that. I'm building upon it, but I've got these basics like you're talking about covered.
The foundation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's important to cover those foundations. And so, you know, one thing you may have heard, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing it, but step 1 or 1A is to get that emergency fund in place. And what I mean by emergency fund is a pot of liquid cash. Most people would recommend, and we would agree, kind of that 3 to 6 months of monthly living expenses, not 3 to 6 months of salary, but 3 to 6 months of those monthly expenses in a high yield savings account that's liquid so that if something happens, if the air conditioner breaks, if the furnace goes out, if you need 4 new tires and it's going to cost you $1,000, it's not going to devastate you. You're not going to have to put it on a credit card or cash out your 401k just to cover, you know, a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 unexpected expense. So if you do nothing else and you're listening to this and you're like, I really want to get my financial house in order, start there. Not only is it going to give you peace of mind knowing that if something should happen, I'm not going to be wiped out. I'm not going to set myself further back because of this one thing. So that's just such a critical piece for anyone out there. And you know, if 3 to 6 months sounds insane, like Jake, it's going to take me a year. Yeah, it might. It might take you 2 years. Start somewhere. Figure out, like Michelle was saying, where's my money going? And here's a fun exercise. So New Year's Day, like me, when you guys are doing your net worth statement, take out a piece of paper, put a line right down the middle of it. On the left, write the word non-discretionary, or another word for that is stuff I have to buy every month. On the right side, write the word discretionary, or things that I like to buy every month. And so the non-discretionary stuff is the you know, the insurance deductibles, it's the property taxes, it's the rent or mortgage payment, it's food, it is, you know, your utilities, stuff that no matter what happens, you must pay those. And then on the right side, eating out, clothes, fun, movies, shopping, all that other stuff that is nice to spend, and just kind of, net those out and see what that actual number is. And then, if you divide your take-home pay by 12, it should be roughly there. And if you've got some left over, that's where you want to start deploying that money into something else, starting with that emergency fund.
Jake, you're kind of making the start to not sound fun, because I think anytime we start to talk about, wait, but if on the left, I've already spent all the money coming in, I can't do anything on the right. And I live on the right, so I want to spend on the right-hand side of the paper. I think that's where this honestly is why it's not fun to talk about spending, budgeting, things like this. Because at the end of the day, we're saying we want to be sure that we're covering our expenses. We want to be able to say, I know how much I spend. And you know what? Yeah, I do choose to do some things on the right-hand side of the paper, but I'm making those choices, and I can because we have the money to do it. That's where we want you to have that freedom to still be able to do them, but just to know that you're doing them. Now, what is also fun is once you actually are saving within those limits of here's what's coming in, and that is greater than or equal to what's going out. The nice thing is once you start having money set aside, I actually think that actually brings a lot of enjoyment to people when they have money set aside. So if something happened, the money's there. The stress of really the decreased amount of stress that people don't feel by having the money there is huge. So just knowing that by doing this, you're trying to get to a place where you can live differently because you're living differently. You're making these choices. So this is the good thing, is you're getting there. Now, another exciting thing is that right now in the economy, cash is actually earning something. So when you put this money in, and this emergency fund, we're saying, let's put it in a safe place. So we're not saying invest this money. It's going over here in this account, like a high yield money market account. Ally, Capital One, there's several out there. So just be sure that you are not just sticking it in your bank savings account earning zero, or your mattress. Exactly. This money needs to be in a place where it's earning something, because that is exciting too when you put $1,000 in there and you add to it and you see that it's growing. Yeah. So
the miracle of compounding over time.
Exactly.
It's just going to keep on growing as that base number keeps climbing up every month. When the interest is deposited, then those interest payments get more. Not only what you're putting in, but that compound interest effect as well.
Exactly. So we're going to let's keep going here then with just more consideration. So we're setting this foundation. We've talked about the emergency fund. We've talked about really risk protection, so insurance. And this is because you've got money, you're saving it. We want to protect what we're saving, because if you were to have something happen, like you said, someone slips and falls, you don't want to have to pay for that. You want to protect your net worth, this money that you're building up. Your insurance that you pay covers that. So then the insurance company that you're paying the premium for is going to cover that loss. So you keep this money you're saving. That's what we're trying to protect.
Exactly. And you know what? Before we dive too far, I'm going to just, for those who may be new to this and are hearing this word net worth thrown around, I guess it's two words. What the heck are they talking about? So just very simply, your net worth is all the stuff that you own, your house, your bank accounts, your investment accounts, your workplace 401ks, all of the quote unquote assets that you have is starting point. Subtract from that any liabilities or any debts that you have, whether that's a mortgage, whether that's student loans, line of credit, credit cards. Subtract what you owe from what you own, and that gives you your net worth. And guess what? If that number is negative, that's okay. Everybody has to start somewhere. I mean, some of the highest income earners, if we have any of our doctors, our physicians out there, you may be 30 years old and have a net worth of negative 300,000. But you got a big shovel, way more than most. So you're going to knock that out and you're going to be in positive ground soon enough. So that's what we're saying when we're talking about net worth. Yeah,
that's a really great point, because kind of back to, we're trying to be sure that these things are useful for anyone. One of the first things that we see is actually for someone, a really big and first goal is actually just to make sure that your net worth is positive. And it's not that it's going to happen on day one. It's just that as you are saving and paying down like a mortgage over time, your net worth is increasing. And so the first thing when we say, hey, your net worth is positive, we're being serious. That's not just a minor thing. So it's actually, that's a really good point. Thanks for clarifying. All right, so we've kind of talked about some of the big ones. So risk, we've talked about some of these pieces. Let's just touch on one of the biggest expenses that people have. So housing. what percent should I be spending? What should my mortgage be? Is there kind of like a goal that we can give people they should shoot for?
I love this question. I will give my opinion here. And this, my opinion when it comes to housing, and the way I arrive at this is, it is probably your biggest expense. We know that, right? But what we don't want to happen for those of you out there that are trying to build this financial security and to set your future self up for success and build towards all these goals and dreams, we don't want you to be spending an inordinate amount of your income on your housing. Now, I get it. For those of you that are on the coast right now, when I give this number, you may say, Jake, that's impossible. We get it. It's very geographically sensitive. But if you are on those coasts, you're probably earning more money as well. So I know it's not a complete offset, but the rule of thumb I like to use is 25% of your take-home pay. So 25% of your take-home pay can be spent on housing. So if you're renting, that's your rent. If you own a home, that includes mortgage, property taxes, insurance, anything that's coming out of that mortgage payment per month, and interest. Interest as well. So 25% net or take-home pay. I think that's a great jumping off point because that frees up 75% for everything else.
Yep.
Now, if you're 28, if you're 30, like don't sell your house and move somewhere less expensive. Just be aware. I think awareness is such a key point when it comes to this, and by knowing where those dollars are going, you can figure that out pretty quickly. On all right, I make this much a month. I know the check I write to my bank every month for my mortgage, which covers interest and insurance. And if you escrow, it'll cover that as well. You can come to that number really quickly.
Yeah, and I think this is where it's interesting because you're saying 25% of take-home pay, which is after 401k, which is after some of these other expenses. So some people may say, I've got 3 kids, and so like my all of our health insurance comes from that. So this is where it is kind of this big. There's different rules. Like for example, if you were going to get a mortgage, the bank uses numbers like 35 to 40% of gross. Yeah. So these are very different numbers, and so I think this is where we're kind of saying like here's a goal that you can aim for because that frees up more money that you have to save or spend on things that you want to. So there's different reasons for different ones. A bank is looking at how likely are you to pay back this mortgage. And so that's where we're just saying you get to choose. These are goals you could aim for. If you're someone who's kind of starting out and saying, I can still choose, or, maybe you need to look at your income. And so, there's a few different pieces to this. So that's helpful.
Yeah. And again, if you're knocking this out with 25% or less of your net pay, you're crushing it. Like you're doing awesome. Like you're freeing up so much extra cash flow. I think that's true. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's just, maybe that's a goal. So, if you like it, and if you don't, let us know.
Exactly. We hope that's helpful. All right. One thing I do find, so we're kind of talking about some of these big pieces that we're talking about here. Really, this isn't necessarily that you're going to walk away and in 5 minutes have these answers. Some of these are very easy to calculate. Others, it might take time. And so we understand like these are kind of big little pieces of your financial structure. So that this is really what you're setting into place. And what's helpful about this is you can take these and do them. These are things you have the information. You can calculate them very easily. But as you start to grow, as you have more opportunities and options available to you, this is when things kind of start to get more complex. Let's say I'm now kind of moving beyond, or I've got a really good start to these pieces. Some things that I'll see people ask, or I'll see them trying to decide between is, okay, I'm saving, I'm putting all this money away, I've got my structure in place, great, or I almost have it, but I really want to start investing. I want to start because that's exciting. And so sometimes they want to do the exciting things first. Any like thoughts, any I guess advice or thoughts on saving versus investing?
Well, first of all, I mean that if somebody's coming to you with this much excitement about investing, I'm pumped. Like that. Yes, me too. Let's talk. Step one. Crawl before you walk before you run. Get that emergency fund in place. If you've got any, consumer debt, credit card debt, any high interest debt, knock that out. But now we're saying, all right, I've done all that. I'm ready to go. Maybe I've been saving cash for a couple of years. I got way more than, a year's worth of expenses. I don't need this money for quite a long time. Again, remember your timelines. This is money that I need 20, 30, 40 years from now. Okay, this is the time to invest then. This is the time to invest. Yep. And this is where, we won't get into the nuts and bolts of investing. We'll let Rob come back in and talk about that. But, this is where you want to find some sort of way to diversify across, stocks, bonds, different industries, big companies, small companies, different duration, even bonds right now. Gosh, we'll find, there's some bond yield out there. So a way to diversify those assets. There's also arguments around, well, I got this, I got $50,000, that I'm ready to deploy. Do I just do it all right now, or do I kind of space it out over time? The research would say do it all at once. Lump sum investing. You may catch it and the market goes down, over the next year, but you don't need this money for 30 or 40 years. It's not going to matter in the long run. But it's whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever's going to help you sleep at night. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, it's helpful because it's just this reminder of, like you said, crawl before you walk. And I was just thinking when our daughter was first born, I never realized actually that in our minds, like as our developmental growth, there's actually something that like our brains, like we skip. If we don't do certain things first, we actually don't learn certain things.
Very true.
I never realized and thought about that. Oh, because I think as parents, we're like, we want our kids to like run before they walk, right? We want them, we want to be proud of them. And it's just this reminder of like, there's actually things that you learn and you're like, you develop as you go. And so these steps are actually really important. Now, we are not saying don't invest at all until you have these things in place. I remember when right. So when I first started, my very first job right after college, I remember I was putting $25 a paycheck into my 401k. And over time, just doing that little bit, $25 I could find somewhere. And even though things were tight when it's your first, your starting salary right out of college, but something, just starting with something. And then as you start with those, you have that kind of budget in place, you just keep adding little by little. It really grows and it's meaningful quickly. So
yes. Thank you. You just jogged my memory on something I wanted to answer earlier. But if you are working and you have an employer that offers some sort of match in your 401k, 403b, whatever your employer-sponsored plan is, make sure no matter what else you are getting that match. That is free money to you. So if your employer will match 5%, match you up to the first 5% you contribute, and you don't have any more discretionary money, like, things are tight right now, but they're going to get better, at least get that 5%, get that free money each and every paycheck, each and every year. And then as you go down those steps, you got your emergency fund in place, you're getting your employer match, no more consumer debt. This is where things start, you'll see this momentum builds. Those high income professionals that we're talking about, this is going to build over time. Now you're looking at, okay, I'm doing all that. What's the max? How much can I contribute to my workplace retirement plan? That changes next year. Spoiler alert. It's going up more than it has in a long time. So, not to get too geeky here, but if you're under 50 years old, the limit's going to be $22,500 next year. So maybe if you're thinking, hey, I maxed it out this year, I'm just going to autopilot that into next year. Take a look, because that's an extra $2,000 that you're going to be able to contribute. And if you're 50 years old or older, not 51, if you turn 50 next year, so anybody born in 1973, you are going to be able to contribute an extra $7,500 on top of that $22,500. $30,000 you're going to be able to sock away for retirement.
And that's the thing. Those are meaningful amounts where that's like you're going to hear from us in the new year where we're going to be reminding you, hey, these numbers have changed. Let's start the year off, because you want to start it in the beginning of the year. It's much easier to plan it across the whole year rather than to say, oh, wait, I just realized in June and now I'm catching up. So,
and if you're listening to this and you're like, but it's, December, somewhere in the middle of December, I wanted to max out this year, but I've only contributed, 3/4 of it. Well, take a look. You still have a couple weeks to do it.
Exactly. You've still got a couple paychecks. And this is where I think people don't realize that your payroll, your paycheck, you can be flexible with that. You should be able to go in and make changes. So just talk with the HR department. See if that's something that you can change, if that's something that you wanted to do. There's still a little bit of time. So that's great. All right. So because this is kind of year end and then the beginning of the year that's coming up, and this is where we're kind of talking to high income earners. It's really common. You might get bonuses that are based on different things, and you also might get them quarterly, but we're kind of talking, this is kind of bonus season here, beginning of the year. And so what do I do with that money if I'm going to be getting a lot of money? These are exciting things, right? Because we're like, wait, I just spent all my money. I was having to budget, but this is like the opposite. Wait, I'm getting all this money. What do I do? And I think it can be overwhelming and exciting, and we just blow it. Is that a great plan?
Yes, I think absolutely. Go to Vegas, put it all in. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
But it is exciting. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, most of you out there, the bonus is coming. You know roughly how much it is. You may not know down to the penny. I think a good best practice to get into is have a plan for those dollars before they hit your checking account. Before that direct deposit hits, have a plan. And if it's, all right, I know I need to put away some money because my kid is going to need braces. Yep. Put that money aside, do some mental accounting, put it in your account aside. What are some of those other big expenses that we've maybe been putting off that we need to do? A little bit of home improvement. Maybe it's, planning for a vacation, socking aside some extra money into your kids' college savings accounts. Like, kind of think about what all those different things are. But Michelle, I would say, do something for yourself too. I think it's totally fine. Spend some money, go out and have a nice dinner, take a weekend trip with your spouse if that's exciting to you. But it's a bonus. I would say carve out whatever you feel comfortable with. That's, just have some fun with it. We are financial planners, yes. So it's very easy for us to think through, all right, we got to have a plan for each of these dollars, but hey, let's have a plan for some of those dollars and just not have a plan.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. I think that's something we really try to balance well when we're working with clients, that we say, like, we get just as excited for them when they say we're retiring, or we're going to be staying 2 months somewhere to kind of prepare for, we might buy a place in this area. And to us, that's really exciting because they're living life. And I know we've talked about this, how that is so exciting for us. So it's just like this, where you're celebrating the hard work that you've done. Yes, you get paid for that hard work, but there are some years where you earn more and it's above and beyond, and so you get this bonus. So even people who, they may not know what the amount, or they may not even know that they're getting it, even if this money comes into your account, let it sit there until you have a plan. So maybe it's even just kind of like, wait, I got this amount. Now think about your plan before you spend any of it, and then go forth and spend, or go forth and put it into those buckets, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you may be thinking, maybe you're sitting out there and you're getting a big bonus. Maybe it's like, 25, 30, even 50% of your salary in one big lump chunk. I know we work with people where this happens. And you've got everything covered. Save up, you're going to take your vacation, but you still have a lot left. That is a great way to supercharge your savings. Throw that, put that into your taxable brokerage account if you've got one. If you haven't, it's a great way to start it. You've paid tax on that money. That's just another way to diversify your investments so that all of your wealth isn't wrapped up in either your home or your retirement plan at work. It's another way to get some money in that after-tax bucket.
Yeah, no, this is really helpful. I feel like if we could kind of summarize everything that we've talked about, we're really saying if you have a high income, what do you do with it? We're really saying have a plan.
Have a plan.
Really know kind of that you're in this bucket. And sometimes people, they've had good income for 10, 15 years, and now they have this structure in place. Or there's people that are saying, I have high income, but I just started in this. And so they're starting to get this financial structure in place. So I think this is where just kind of knowing your personality, knowing when you need help, that's really what you're trying to be careful of. You want to be aware of, is knowing yourself.
Stuff that we're talking about and what I've been chiming in on, this is stuff that I wish my 25, 30-year-old self would have listened to and taken seriously. It took me a while to get out of my kind of knucklehead 20s and early 30s, but this is what sets that compounding effect cannot be overstated. Every dollar that you're investing and putting aside now is going to grow exponentially the younger you are. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that's great, I'm 55 and I'm trying to retire in the next 10 years. That's okay. Yeah, it's not going to grow like it would have done over the last 30 years if you started when you were 25, but it's still going to grow. You're still setting your future self up for success. So no time like the present. What's the saying? The best time to plant a tree
was
yesterday. Or was 30 years ago.
The best time to invest. The best time to save.
Yeah. So the best time to invest, it would have been 30 years ago. But the second best time, hey, it's right now.
Well, and that's something else you said earlier. It's basically like, even if you're retiring in 10 years, let's say, you don't need every dollar on day one.
No.
So you have time to let your money, that's really the thing. Even if you've got 10 years you're saving for, we only need a portion of that, So that's where it's kind of like you do have time to let your money grow. And so those are these pieces. Really what we're trying to do is encourage you to have a plan, make sure that you're starting with the basics, but also as you move beyond those basics, as a high income earner, that can happen quickly. And so as you're moving beyond these basics, we want to be sure that you're being encouraged with the next goal and making sure that you're working towards those goals you have. So we're really here to encourage and push you towards that, but also help you live life and enjoy it along the way too. So
absolutely. Yes. We know that with, those higher income folks, more complexity comes, and you may get to a point where, hey, this was easy for a while. I just, I had my target date fund and my 401k and I just autopilot. Yep. But now you may be to a new place where, wow, the kids are leaving the house. There's some college funding needs that are coming up. I've got this new stock options for my company and I'm a little bit confused and not sure what to do. Well, that's that's what we're here to do. So if you need somebody, you need some help with this stuff, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, if you find yourself as a high income earner and you aren't sure if you're managing well, or if you are and you're ready to kind of move to the next step, please feel free, get to know us better. We've got a lot of information online. You can connect with us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, the podcast. If you're listening to this, you've already found that, LinkedIn. So if you've got any questions you'd like us to answer or topics to cover, you can email those to podcast@financialdesignstudio.com, and Anna will make sure that we get those added for future episodes. With that, I think we're going to leave you, Jake, to go do your net worth statement here in the next couple of weeks, since you're going to be getting started.
I am so excited for that. But yes, seriously, if you have questions, please reach out to us. If you have a topic you'd like to hear about, email Anna. She's our crack executive producer. She puts all this together, and she's the person you hear at the beginning and end of every show. So, well, Michelle, thank you so much. This was fun to talk. I feel like I could go on forever, and I probably could. But we'll wrap for today. But I really appreciate you bringing me on today.
Yeah, thanks so much for being a part. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon, Jake. Thanks.
Probably in a few minutes.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear in our podcast, please subscribe. We release new episodes every other week. And quick note, the content discussed on this podcast should not be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual actions or choices. But for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. We'll see you in the next episode.